The year is 1651. On the 16th day of Ramadan, the chief black eunuch Suleyman I and his armed men descended on the palace. They proceeded to Kosem's quarters, which was guarded by janissaries. Kosem tried to escape from the palace through the carriage gate, but the gate was locked. She crept into a small cabinet, hoping that the janissaries would come to her rescue. What led to the downfall and death of the Ottoman history's most influential woman? Kosem is the daughter of a Greek Orthodox priest on the island of Tinos. Her maiden name was Anastasia. In 1604, at the age of 14, she was kidnapped by Ottoman raiders and sold as a slave in Bosnia to the governor. The head of the Sultan's harem noticed her intelligence and beauty and sent her to the imperial capital to be trained with other slave girls in Sultan Ahmed's harem as a court lady. Ahmed ascended the throne after his father's death in 1603, at the age of 13, when his powerful grandmother Safiye Sultan was still alive. With his accession to the throne, the power struggle in the harem flared up between his mother Handan Sultan and his grandmother Safiye Sultan, who in the previous reign had absolute power. Ahmed broke with the tradition and did not order the execution of his brother Mustafa. The reason for this was probably Ahmed's youth. He had not proven his fertility yet, and Mustafa was the only other heir to the Ottoman throne. Instead, Mustafa was sent to live at the old palace along with their grandmother, Safiye Sultan, and his mother Halima Sultan. This period is also called the Sultanate of Women, when wives and mothers of the sultans of the Ottoman Empire exerted extraordinary political influence. The long Turkish war between the Ottomans and the Habsburg monarchy had been going on for over a decade by the time Ahmed ascended the throne. The war with the Habsburgs and the high taxes, along with the poor Ottoman military performance, made Ahmed's reign the peak of the rebellions in Anatolia. Mahpeyker was Ahmed's first concubine, and on 3rd of November 1604, she gave birth to Ahmed's firstborn, the future Osman II, making Ahmed the youngest Ottoman Sultan to have fathered a child. Ahmed's mother Handan Sultan died in November of the following year. With the revolts in Anatolia more dangerous than ever, and a defeat in the Eastern Front, Ahmed was forced to negotiate a peace agreement with the Habsburgs. The agreement abolished the tribute of 30,000 ducats paid by Austria and addressed the Habsburg Emperor as the equal of the Ottoman Sultan for the first time. After Handan's death, Kosem Sultan took control of the harem throughout Ahmed's reign and became the highest authority in the harem. In the early years of their marriage, she bore Ahmed 4 daughters. As the mother of several princesses, she had the right to arrange suitable dynastic marriages for them. In 1612, Ayşe Sultan, the eldest child of Kosem, was married to the Grand Vizier at the age of 7, while Gevherhan Sultan was married to another pasha at the age of 5. Kosem arranged matches for all her daughters, which could be of political use. They were married at least 7 times. Kosem was Ahmed's most beloved concubine. He fathered 4 sons with Kosem Sultan in 4 consecutive years. Kosem had great interest in the succession after the arrival of her firstborn son, Murad, in 1612. She was afraid that if one of the Sultan's sons inherited the throne, it would be the oldest Osman, whose mother, Mahpeyker Hatun, would force him to kill her sons, since brother killing was a common practice. so she made efforts to keep Ahmed's half-brother-in-law Mustafa safe from execution. Kosem and her stepson Osman grew fond of each other. She used to let him join her in carriage rides, where he showed himself to the crowd when she made excursions into Constantinople. Ahmed died of typhus and gastric bleeding at the Topkapi Palace, Istanbul. A court faction decided to enthrone Mustafa instead of Ahmed's son Osman, arguing that Osman was too young to be enthroned. It was the first time an Ottoman sultan was succeeded by his brother instead of his son. Mustafa was kept in house arrest for most of his life, isolated from the outside world. He was also traumatized by the execution of his older brother Mahmud, who was killed by their father. It was hoped that regular social contact would improve Mustafa's mental health, but his behavior remained eccentric. In 1618, after a short rule, another palace faction deposed him in favor of his young nephew Osman, and Mustafa was sent back to the old palace. Sultan Osman's first act as sultan was to take power away from Mustafa's supporters. As a result, Kosem and her 8 children and entourage were banished to the old palace. His uncle Mustafa was kept alive, as were Osman's younger half-brothers, protected by Kosem. Despite his youth, Osman soon sought to assert himself as a ruler, and after securing the empire's eastern border, he personally led the Ottoman campaign against Poland and King Sigismund. Forced to sign a humiliating peace treaty with the Poles after the battle, Osman returned home to Constantinople in shame, blaming the cowardice of the Janissaries and the insufficiency of his statesmen for his humiliation. Osman wanted to modernize the army. However, this was opposed by the tradition-minded Janissaries. That opposition resulted in the rebellion of Janissaries in 1622, in which Osman was deposed and killed. In place of Osman, the weak and incompetent Mustafa was restored to the throne with the support of Kosem. But he soon showed signs of mental instability again. During the closing months of his second reign, he ordered the execution of everyone involved in Osman's death, including Kosem's sons. But before his orders could be carried out, both Kosem and the eunuch corps intervened and deposed him once more. Kosem eventually reached an agreement with the viziers to install her son Murad as Sultan. Kosem entered the Topkapi Palace with a grandiose ceremonial procession in front of which 1,000 dervishes were marching with prayers to celebrate her forthcoming. She was once again thrust into the political arena when her son ascended to the throne as Sultan Murad. Since he was a minor, she was appointed not only as Queen Mother, but also as official regent. Kosem effectively ran the empire through her son, attending and arranging cabinet sessions from behind the curtain. She was in charge of appointing political figures and overseeing the state's administration, which allowed her to establish connections with statesmen, judges, and other court figures. She would meet with foreign ambassadors from other countries to discuss international treaties. In May 1632, during an uprising in Constantinople, the Janissaries stormed the palace and killed the Grand Vizier, among others. In response to this, as well as fearing that he would suffer the same fate as his elder half-brother Osman, Murad decided not to allow anyone else to interfere in his administration of the empire, and ordered his mother to sever her contacts with his statesmen, threatening her with exile from the capital if she did not comply. Murad was aware of the Janissaries' gatherings in the coffee shops. He outlawed alcohol, tobacco, and coffee in Constantinople. He decreed death penalty for violating this ban. Murad's reign is most notable for the Ottoman Safavid War against Persia, in which Ottoman forces managed to conquer Azerbaijan and capturing Baghdad in 1638. Wary of a Janissary uprising, he ordered the execution of his brothers Suleiman and Qasim after the victory celebrations. Of Kosem's last surviving sons, the mentally unstable Ibrahim lived in fear of being the next of his brothers to be executed by Murad. On his deathbed in 1640, Murad told his mother of his disdain for his brother Ibrahim, saying that it would be better for the dynasty to end rather than continue with an heir who was insane. Ibrahim's life was only saved by the intercession of his mother Kosem, who argued that he was too mad to be a threat. Following Murad's death at the age of 27, Ibrahim was the sole surviving prince of the dynasty. When the Grand Vizier asked him to assume the Sultanate, Ibrahim suspected Murad was still alive and plotting to trap him. Kosem ordered his brother's corpse to be displayed before him and even threatened Ibrahim with strangulation if he refused to be crowned Sultan. With the accession of Ibrahim, Kosem once again became politically active as his principal advisor. During the early years of Ibrahim's reign, he retreated from politics and turned increasingly to his harem for comfort and pleasure. Kosem Sultan kept her son in check by supplying him with virgins she personally purchased. Since he was the only surviving male member of the Ottoman dynasty, Ibrahim was encouraged by his mother to distract himself with harem girls and soon fathered 3 future sultans. Ibrahim came under the influence of various unsuitable people, and his extravagant tendencies went unchecked. Soon the Janissaries and members of the ulama revolted. Ibrahim was seized and imprisoned in Topkapi Palace. Kosem gave consent to her son's fall. Ibrahim was strangled, and his 6-year-old son Mehmed was made sultan. Despite her wish to retire from politics, Kosem was persuaded by the leaders who overthrew Ibrahim to remain as the regent of Sultan Mehmed, since she had more statecraft skills and experience than Mehmed's young mother, Turhan Sultan. In 1650, Constantinople's merchants rose in rebellion. The treasury was once again empty, and traders were obliged to accept faulty coins in place of good ones, which was paid to the Janissaries. They retaliated by closing their shops and taking to the streets, demanding the dismissal of Grand Vizier and the head of the Janissaries. Political figures who resented Kosem's alliance with the Janissaries encouraged Turhan to resist the regent's monopoly of power and patronage, and she began to plot against Kosem. The Janissaries remained loyal to her, while most of the harem and the palace eunuchs and the Grand Vizier favored Turhan. Once Kosem realized this, she began to plot to dethrone Mehmed and replace him with his younger half-brother, Suleiman. Kosem secretly asked the palace guards to leave the gates open so that Janissaries could sneak in and kill Turhan. She also allegedly gave 2 bottles of poisoned sherbet to the head cook in the palace kitchen to poison the child Sultan. The day before the plot was due to be carried out, one of Kosem's slaves betrayed it to the chief black eunuch. He then decided to force his way into Kosem's quarters after consultation with the Grand Vizier. Suleiman Aha and his accomplices moved silently and rapidly. Hearing the commotion, Kosem fled along the Golden Way and through the court of the black eunuchs to the dome, with closets hoping to escape from the palace through the carriage gate. The gate was locked, so she crept into a small cabinet, hoping that Turhan's eunuchs would pass her by and that the Janissaries would come to her rescue. A piece of her dress that was sticking out from under the cabinet door gave Kosem away to a halberdier. He pulled her out by force. A group of 4 men then strangled her with a piece of cord ripped from the curtains. Assuming she was dead, they went to notify the Sultan and his mother. Once they were out of sight, Kosem lifted herself up again, presumably hoping to escape through a secret passageway. But as soon as her disappearance was noticed, the assassins were called back. She was caught, and this time strangled with her own hair. Kosem Sultan died on September 2, 1651.